Okay, so I'm Kristian Segerstråle. I'm the Executive Vice President of Digital at Electronic Arts. Before then, I've been a serial entrepreneur, building a mobile games company today called Blue Mobile, the European half of that, and social games company called Playfish, where I was a co-founder and chief executive. And today I'm here at Slush 12, which is an amazing event, talking about both entrepreneurship and leading change and creating a better tomorrow in general.
So what were the main points in your talk?
So if you have 20 minutes, I could walk through the whole thing. But the main talk basically is that ultimately entrepreneurship matters. It's what ultimately will build a better tomorrow. It's what's going to build jobs. It's what's going to build better services for us as consumers. It's what's going to build tax revenue. All those things that it's ultimately going to, leave this world hopefully a better place for our kids than what we discovered as when we were born. So all those things are important. It doesn't matter if you're building a little startup or if you're transforming a big company like Electronic Arts. It all comes from imagining a different kind of tomorrow than what we have today, and ultimately building toward it. And what I did was I shared a couple of lessons of my journey as an entrepreneur, and some of the lessons that I wish somebody would have tapped me on the shoulder to teach me, if you like, before I went on the journey. So I talked about things like the importance of dreaming the biggest possible dream, and not just going for what could be kind of feel safe and little, but rather dare to dream a real global dream, if you like. Talked a lot about also how important it is to focus, how important it is to hire the best possible talent that you possibly can, and how important the community is, how important it is to reinvest back into the community with your time by becoming an advisor, a seed investor, and overall, because it takes a village to raise a child, and it genuinely takes a startup community to create a set of successful startups. So those are sort of the main topics of the talk. Well, I think events like Slush are incredibly important, not just because it brings the community together to celebrate entrepreneurship, which is incredibly important, and it clearly matches up investors and potential startups, but it also hopefully really spreads the message about how instead of the brightest young talent, my dream personally is to see the brightest young talent not go to banks, but go to companies rather that really are revolutionizing where the world is going. So whether it's a big company like EA that's reinventing computer games, or whether it's a smaller startup that focuses on how to change education or how to change healthcare or one of those things by using new technologies, I think that ultimately would be the biggest win. If not only do we get companies funded and new startups going, but we actually attract more people into the startup industry to ultimately make a better world tomorrow. So the startup scene in Europe compared to the US is, how shall I put it, it's different. Firstly, there is of course no Europe and US. It's more like, what I have seen in my own experience is I spent 10 years in the London startup scene. I've also now spent about a year in the Silicon Valley, so I've sort of seen those two, and I've been in and out of checking out what happened in Finland up to 5 years ago, nothing, and then the startup sauna folks have created this amazing thing, right, around the startup sauna, around Slush, and a whole bunch of other things, which has been exciting. So I think it's the Silicon Valley is the most mature of all of them, but it's the most mature in terms of the amount of talent and the density of talent and the amount of expertise in lots of different areas. But weirdly, it also has its challenges in terms of the war for talent, for example. It's ultimately a small geographic area. There's only so many people there. In Europe and in London, certainly I'm also partially in Helsinki, I think it's almost the opposite. You actually have a ton of talent, but a much shallower network. So you don't yet have people who created 10 companies and have seed invested in 100 companies and learned everything there is to learn about building companies. So that's where the opportunity is kind of inverse, if you like, of getting, and that's why it's so exciting with Slush, that we can actually bring together the community in a different way to get more match up, if you like, more world-class talent to create great startups. So I think they're all different, they're all interesting, they're all fresh, and I think they can all learn from each other. To me, ultimately, what's exciting about entrepreneurship and startups overall is that we get the opportunity to leave our footprint in the sand, if you like. We can leave our marks on the world one way or the other. And what could be more amazing than leaving a mark that ultimately makes the world a better place for your kids to grow up in, that they can look at that, daddy did that. That'd be so cool.